Dear students, welcome to this session on literary criticism and theory. Let us first of all take the concept of criticism. Let me ask you something at the outset. Soon as you hear the word criticism, what comes to your mind? Isn't it something negative? Many of you might think that criticism is a negative activity. That is, to criticize somebody is to find fault with somebody, or to criticize something means to find fault with something. If at all you have such misconceptions, you have to brush them all aside first. Today, we are going to deal with the topic literary criticism. As we all know, literature is an art. Similarly, criticism is an art. It is equally creative and constructive. In simple terms, we can say that literary criticism means an act of appreciating a literary work. It's an act of appreciating a literary work. Walter Pater, an essayist, once said that criticism is the art of interpreting art. It's a concern with defining, classifying, expounding, and evaluating a literary work. There are so many definitions about literary criticism. I would like to quote the most famous definitions. It's one by Matthew Arnold, the Victorian poet critic. He said that criticism is a disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world. Let us take this definition. Criticism is a disinterested endeavor. What do you mean by disinterested? Disinterested means you're not getting emotionally or personally involved in something. You stand apart as a third party in an objective way and in an unbiased way and in an impartial way. You stand outside and you do something in a disinterested way. That means you're not biased. And what are they doing? It's a disinterested endeavor, an attempt to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world. There is an attempt to learn something new when you do criticism. Not just learning, you learn it and then you disseminate, you spread it to others as well. And what are you trying to learn and spread? The best ideas that are ever known and thought in the world. So this is what you mean by literary criticism. It's a disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate the best that is known and taught in the world. So in a nutshell, we can say that literary criticism is not a negative activity, or it's not a dry activity. It's an art of interpreting art. You can appreciate an artistic work, whether it is a painting, or a dance, or a musical performance, or a literary work. You are trying to bring out the wider significance of it by criticizing that. So from now on, you should have a positive outlook towards the art of criticism. It is equally constructive and creative. Let us now see who is a good critic. Critics are not like ordinary readers. An ordinary reader, a man or a woman like us, may read a literary work and enjoy that for a while. But a critic is different. He is an informed reader. He knows better than an ordinary reader. He is well versed in literary devices, figurative devices, and so on. They can help ordinary people to appreciate and understand a literary work in a better light. So, a critic serves as a link between the author and his readers. See, the authors are the inspired group of people, and the readers are those uninspired group of people. So, a critic serves as a bridge between the author and his readers. They help to appreciate the inner and outer beauty of a literary work. Besides, they bring out the philosophical, psychological, metaphorical meaning, etc. So, a critic is a person who can read between and behind the lines, and they try to unravel what is hidden in a literary work. And he is the one who passes a judgment or a final verdict on a literary work. So, in general, critics are informed readers. Let us now see what are the qualities of a good critic. As I told you, a critic is an informed reader who is a step ahead to ordinary people. So, a person who reads a lot can come up with a lot of interpretations. So, to be a critic, one has to read thoroughly. Vast reading is indispensable. Thorough knowledge, rich experience, aesthetic sensibility, technical knowledge, and disinterested impartiality. As I told you, disinterestedness means you are not biased. You don't tend to identify with something, or you don't get into it too much. You don't get involved emotionally in something. Instead, you stand apart in an objective way as a third party and then view it in an objective way. So this is what I mean by disinterested impartiality. So nothing in a literary work should influence you or bias you. So a critic should have technical knowledge, which means he should be aware of the various narrative techniques, the various points of view, the elements of fiction, and different approaches, the target of a literary work, the methodology used by the writer, the techniques of narration. Everything should be familiar to a critic. Only then he can bring out the relevance of a literary work. And a critic should have an eye for beauty. He should be able to bring out all beautiful elements of a literary work. And that's why it is said that a good critic should have aesthetic sensibility. So, a person who reads a lot, a person who has in-depth knowledge, a person who has considerable fund of experience, and somebody who can appreciate beauty, and somebody with vast technical knowledge on literature, and somebody who is unbiased. So these are the qualities of a good critic. I would like to give you an introduction to the classical phase of Western literary criticism. So there are three main personalities who come under the wing classical criticism. They are namely Plato, Aristotle, and Longinus. As you can see, this is the image of Plato. Plato laid the foundation of Western philosophy. He was born in 428 BC in Athens to a family of long aristocratic lineage, and at the age of 20 he became the disciple of Socrates. See, this is Aristotle. He was a most brilliant student at Plato's academy. See, this is the image of Longinus, a first century critical thinker. I think this is enough for the day. So we have discussed what is literary criticism, what are the functions of a critic, who is a good critic, and then we started with the early phase of Western literary criticism. It is known as classical criticism, and we saw the images of three philosophers, namely Plato, Aristotle, and Longinus. So we'll continue with our discussion on literary criticism in the following days. Thank you.